Hi everyone, thank you for joining this webcast. My name is Nimrod Geva and I manage the KWIZCom product group. Just a quick 15 seconds pitch about KWIZCom. We've been developing add-ons and apps since 2005. We operate from Toronto, Canada. And today I'm going to speak about KWIZCom Forms, and more specifically I'm going to speak more about the new major version, which includes the support for modern forms. I assume that some of you are not familiar with KWIZCom Forms, so I'm going to start with about 5 to 7 minutes quick overview about KWIZCom Forms. I'll focus on the main features or on key points that make KWIZCom Forms different. I won't cover everything, and then I'll go right ahead. The main part of my session will be just one big demo. So if you look at the sentence 100% SharePoint native form solution for non-technical users, I like to emphasize just 3 points. The first point is that for those of you who don't know KWIZCom Forms and you compare it to InfoPath, Power Apps, and other solutions, form solutions in the market, KWIZCom Forms is designed for non-technical users, even not for power users. It's designed for business users. Our main target was to eliminate the bottleneck of having 2-3 smart form experts doing forms for the entire organization. So you won't see any super complex designer. Instead, you will see simple web settings pages. You'll see it right away. The second thing that makes KWIZCom Forms different is that unlike most of the solutions that are out there, we did not introduce another proprietary form designer that creates proprietary forms. Instead, we took the existing SharePoint list forms and we enhanced them. And this is what makes KWIZCom Forms a 100% SharePoint native solution. It means because we stayed within SharePoint and because we're using the out-of-the-box SharePoint list forms, the new item form, edit item form, and the view form, it means you get to keep all your SharePoint extensibility features, which means any supported customization by Microsoft, any third-party feature, any third-party custom column will keep working inside KWIZCom Forms, because again, unlike InfoPath, for example, it's not like XSN pages that just look like SharePoint or installed on the SharePoint library. These are actually the same SharePoint list form, so all the extensibility features keep on working. The third key point that I'd like to mention before I go to the live demo is that I don't know how many are familiar with all the apps that you see on the Microsoft App Store, but most of them are provider-hosted apps. A provider-hosted app is an app that is visible on your SharePoint page, but actually it renders the data, it processes the data on the provider's cloud server. And the vendor might also have its database on its cloud server. If you take some of the form solutions that you have in the market, so a typical scenario would be that you see a form that might look like SharePoint, you type in your data and you click submit. At that point, the data goes to the cloud server, it is rendered there and it's processed, and you get your form saved and so on. In KWIZCom, we made a key decision long time ago, and it applies to our form app, but also to all our apps. All our apps are implemented as SharePoint hosted app. It means they're implemented as 100% client-side code. Nothing is sent, nothing is saved on any cloud server. So as a customer, you can rest assured that none of your data goes out of your tenant. And this is a very important key decision regarding privacy and security. Now, I mentioned that we have a new version with modern forms. So we have the classic forms and we have our modern forms. I'd just like to mention the differences. So up until now, KWIZCom forms had only its classic forms. And this is because the new modern list and new modern forms, sadly to say, are not extensible. You cannot customize the new modern forms. So up until now, even if you as a customer work with KWizCom forms on a modern list, when you clicked new item or edit item or view item, you always saw KWizCom forms based on the classic forms. You saw it had the previous look and feel, not the modern. And as I said, the advantages are clear. Because we're using the out-of-the-box list forms, you keep all your extensibility features. Now in the new version, we have a new set of forms, and these are the modern forms. They are based on the new Microsoft Fluent UI design, so they are 100% responsive. It's one design both for desktop and handheld devices, and that's what I'll be demoing today. One thing that I must mention, because it's not the classic forms, these forms do not support third-party custom columns, what we did with the classic forms. So we do support all our custom columns, but if you bought a custom column from another vendor, it will not work on our modern forms. Okay. Um, Now the nice thing is that you can choose. You can work in a classic list with our classic forms. You can work on a classic list with our modern forms. Same goes with modern list. You can work on a modern list or library with our classic forms or with our modern forms. It's just clicking one button. I'll show you where you choose if you want the new modern forms or the classic forms. KWizCom forms include 3 editions: Standard, Pro, and Enterprise. Each one has its added features. I won't be reading from the slide. When I demo, I'll mention if something is not part of the basic version. Now, KWizCom forms has many features. I'm not going to demo each and every one. We don't have the time. What I'm going to do instead, I'm going to demo a scenario from scratch. And I didn't prepare any pre-designed fancy looking forms. Instead, I'm going to start really from scratch. And I think it's much better because you get to see the real user experience, the good and the bad, but the real user experience, starting from the point where you install the product and you want to make your SharePoint leads forms dynamic. So I have this sales leads form. I'll show it to you in a second. And it's not customized in any way. And I'm going to enhance these list forms in many ways. And I'm going to do it step by step. As I said, I won't have the time to demo every feature, but I think you get the feeling of the user experience of working with KWizCom forms. So the first thing I'm going to do, and it's the most common requirement, is actually make the form dynamic. A dynamic form means show, hide, or disable fields according to who I am and according to my actions in the form. And I'm going to do several things here. I have these 2 fields that are highlighted now, the lead source and published on site. Now, published on site field is relevant only if the selected lead source is add/banner. For any other selected value by the user, I should hide the published on site field. Another thing that I want to do is regards product and quantity. Both these fields are relevant only if the lead type is product license. For any other lead type, I shouldn't see these 2 fields. And same goes for another field called work estimate, which is relevant only if the lead type is custom project. And finally, I don't know if I'll do it if I'll have the time, but also I wanted to show upsell amount and upsell details only if upsell checkbox is checked. Okay, so let's get started. First, I'll show you the sales leads new item form just to show you that I'm really starting from scratch, although it's uh, less convenient for me because it's much safer for me to, to show you a fancy form. But this is the form, okay? And I want to switch to class to modern in this example. So let's switch to modern list here. And once you install KWIZCom Forms app, you'll see the KWIZCom Forms ribbon button here. You see KWIZCom Form. It's not a ribbon button, sorry. We are in the modern list, so just a button in the toolbar. So I'm clicking the KWIZCom Forms button to go to the KWIZCom Forms settings page. This page shows all the options that I have here. You see that some of them have professional edition written, means this feature is available only in the professional edition. And you have here some that you see enterprise edition. So this means this feature is available only in the enterprise edition. All other are available in the standard edition. And so the first thing I want to do is dynamically show or hide fields. So I'm going to the first option. It's this one, dynamically show hide fields. And as I said, there is no designer here. There is no designer user experience. We are targeting business users. So everything is based here on logic rules. You select a field and you apply a rule. That's it. So let's start with the fields that I want to hide. So first field I just remind you, the first field I want to conditionally show is published on site, and it depends on the value of the lead source. Okay, so I'm selecting the published on site field. And now I'm going to add a new rule. I want to apply this rule in the new item form, edit item form, and view form. I can also apply to list views, by the way. I'll talk about it a bit later. And I can show the field, hide the field, or disable the field. I want to hide the field. And now I need to say when I want the field, the condition. So I want to hide the field if lead source is not equal to add/banner, because only if it equals add/banner I want to show it. And I'm clicking apply. That's it. Now I'm going to the other field, which are products and quantity. Products, I want to hide it as well. So in the same list forms, in the new item, edit item, and view, and I want to hide it. And again, the condition is if lead type is not equal to product license. And you see, when I apply a rule, I see all the rules under all rules. And it's written in plain English, like this one. Hide product in these forms when lead type is not equal to this value. It's very simple. And I'm going to quantity as well, and I'm going to apply exactly the same rule. So let's do it very quickly. I'm gonna hide it. I can disable it if I want. If lead type is not equal to product license. And finally, I'm going to also configure the work estimate field. This one needs to be displayed on a different value. So let's configure it. I want again to apply it in these forms. I want to hide it. If lead type this time is not equal to custom project. I think that's enough. Okay, so I have these rules. By the way, all the conditions were very simple, but I can always create a more complex rules. You see, I can add more conditions with and or. Like for example, I can say and current user is in or not in some group, for example. So you can create a lot more complex rules. Okay, clicking apply, and now I'm going to open the form in a new tab, so it will be easier for me to switch between the design and the. So let's click new, and this time you're supposed to see, oh, I think I didn't switch to modern forms, right? Okay, so it's not good. Let's close it. I forgot to show you how to switch to modern. Okay, so I'm clicking save here, going back to KWIZCom form settings page. And here at the bottom, we added this button that says try modern forms. So I'm clicking it. That's it. Okay, let's go back here and I'm clicking new. Okay, so this time we got the modern form. I still didn't arrange the form. I'll do it next time, but in the next minutes. But let's look at the dynamic behavior. Okay, so remember, if I choose lead source equal add banner, I should see the published on site field. But if I select any other field under any other value, it's not here. Now let's go to lead type. If I select product license, suddenly I see products and quantity. If I select custom project, I don't see products and quantity. Instead, I see the work estimate. And if I select other values, I don't see either of these. So it's that easy to make your form completely dynamic. I just showed you the way to hide a field. You could also make a field disabled. Okay, great. So let's go forward with our presentation. Okay, so I showed you how to dynamically hide fields. Now, as I said before, you can also hide fields, hide columns from views. And one special view is the quick edit view. It's special because this is a view which actually serves for editing, for bulk editing. So the dynamically show hide field feature also works in the quick edit view. So I can, for example, disable or hide a field in the quick edit view. Let's do it really quickly. There's the price field. I want to make this field disabled this time. Great. So let's get out of this new item form and let's go to the quick edit view for a second. Okay, and let's see if we have here, yeah, the price. So currently everything works regular, including the price field. You see it's editable, so I can change it here if I want. Okay, now let's go back to KWIZCom Forms and make the price field view only, read only in the quick edit view. So I'm going back to KWIZCom Forms and I'm going back to the same settings page, dynamically show hide fields. And this time I'm going to add a new rule for the price field to make it disabled in views. So I'm selecting the price field. Here it is. And I'm creating a new rule. And this time I'm going to apply it not in the forms, but in list views. And I'm going to select disable. No condition for this. I'm just clicking apply. Okay, so I have a new rule here at the bottom, disable price in list views. Let's go back here. Okay, you see now that all the fields are editable, but when I go here to the price field, it's great. I cannot edit it, unlike other fields which are completely editable. So this is the way to also disable or hide fields in views, specifically disable fields in the quick edit view. Okay, let's move ahead to some other things. So next thing I'd like to do is to create a multi-tab, multi-column form, just to arrange my form fields in a better way, not just one field in a row with a very long form. So I'd like to have like three tabs maybe, and also be able to arrange my fields, maybe have two fields in every row side by side and not just one after the other. So let's do it. Okay, so let's go back here to my KWIZCom Forms settings page. And this time I'm going to select the form layout option. This is where you customize your forms layout. Now again, you won't see any designer where I should drag and drop or create, work with pixels on and all this stuff. It's too much for our target audience. We try to make it as easy as possible, and whatever we can render automatically, just do it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just change the default number of fields per row. I'll change it to 2. So this allows me to have 2 fields in every row. Just better use my screen. And I can display field groups. Field groups can be rendered as tabs or as accordion sections. Okay, I'll leave it as tabs. And I'll create a new group now. And the new group, I'll call it account details, because I want to show in the first tab only the account fields that are related to the account of the lead. So when I do it, I get this grid, which looks like word table, and it has these drop downs, and all I need to do is just select which field needs to be displayed in each cell. I don't need to mess with the alignment or width, or everything is rendered automatically. So I'm going to select the account field, and next to it I want to see the account contact field. Now you see here I also have conditions, which means I can also apply conditions for the visibility of tabs or accordion sections. So I can say this user will see 3 tabs when he opens the form, but another user will see 5 tabs because he belongs to some group. Okay, let's click apply, and let's see the result immediately. So going back here, let's click new again to see the new item form. And I should see currently only 1 tab. Okay, so I have account and account. I have this tab called sales leads, and I have account and account contacts. As you can see, the form is completely responsive. That's the nice thing. So you don't have to worry about mobile devices and desktop. It's all the same for us now because we're using Microsoft Fluent UI. Now let's create quickly another tab. This one, so I'm clicking here, new group, and let's call this other tab lead details. And I'll try to do it quickly. So I want to show lead source. And next to it, I want to show the published on site field. Now I want to add another row. So it's like a Word document table. When you hover the table on the borders, you see a plus sign. So you can add another row. So it's very simple. Let's add the assigned to, and next to it, I'd like to have the due date field. Let's add another row to this table and have the lead type. And next to it, I'll have the work estimate. And I'll have just 4 more fields, products and quantity, which are also dynamic. I want to show you their dynamic behavior inside a tab. And price and status. And you know what? Let's add the upsell. I don't know if I'll get the time to demonstrate it, but just have it here. Okay. And I'm clicking apply. And finally, I want to add another group, and that's it. So let's add the upsell details. And I want to have here upsell amount and upsell details. And you know what? Let's add a condition for this tab to be visible only if the upsell checkbox is checked. So you see dynamic behavior of tabs, not only fields. Okay, let's do it. So only if apps upsell is equal to yes, show this tab. Okay, now let's see how this looks like. So I'm refreshing the new item form. Okay, so I have account details and lead details, 2 tabs, right? And it's behaving dynamically as I expect. So if I click the custom project, I see work estimate. If I click work product license, there's no work estimate. Instead, I see product and quantity and so on. And I have here the upsell. I see only 2 tabs. If I click upsell, now I see the 3rd tab, okay, which has the upsell amount and the upsell details. So it's that simple. One more thing that I wanted to mention, some customers don't like the way modern forms act. Modern forms stretch all the way. So if my screen is this wide, you see the fields all over. By the way, it's not stretched all the way because I made it not do it. I'll show you how. And if I narrow it, it goes to look like this. So it's fully responsive. You see, it acts very nice also with handheld devices. Now, if you want to change this behavior, you can click here and click styles. And we allow you to override all our styles. For example, you can see here that I made only field of type daytime be with a maximum width of 300 pixels. And I also configured a max width for all the fields of 520 pixels. You don't have to do it. You can remove all of this and all the fields will have the same width according to the Microsoft Fluent UI, but you can make changes. Same way you can change the entire look and feel of the form. Backgrounds, fonts, styles, everything. You got the total freedom to do it. Let's move forward. So after we customized a bit the layout of the form, I'd like to add some cascaded fields. And in this example, I'm talking specifically about the account and the account contacts lookup fields. Both of these fields are SharePoint lookup fields, regular SharePoint lookup fields, and they are connected, of course. Every contact belongs to some account. And I want this relationship to be reflected in my form. So when I select an account, I want to see in account contacts dropdown only that selected accounts contacts. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So going back to my KWIZCom Forms settings page, I'm going to select this option, which is called Cascading Lookup. Okay, as you see, this one belongs to the Professional Edition, so it's not included in the Standard Edition. You need the Professional Edition. By the way, it is also a separate product. So I'm clicking this option. So we show you in the select column, we show you all the regular lookup columns that you have in your current list. And you can choose which one of them you want to convert to a cascading lookup. Cascading lookup, beside the cascaded behavior, has some additional enhancements comparing to the out-of-the-box lookup field. So let's start with the account field. So the account field is connected to the customers list. I can also choose a site, and this is an enhancement comparing to the out-of-the-box lookup field, because a regular lookup field in SharePoint can be connected to a lookup list only that's located in the same site. You cannot have in out-of-the-box SharePoint a lookup to a remote list. So here we are enabling you to connect to a remote site and remote list. And secondly, I can also apply filtering. Let's say I have many values in my lookup list. So first of all, I can filter by some list view. That's also impossible with the out-of-the-box lookup field. And also, let's say even if I filtered by some list view, and still I have in my lookup list hundreds of items, and I would like to allow the users to filter by additional columns from that remote list, I can choose it here. For example, let's choose to filter by account manager, and I'm clicking apply. And I want to set up also the account contacts list. This one should be cascading, should be filtered by the selected account, right? So it's connected to the contacts list. And this time I'm selecting this option. I want to filter by another column in this list. So I want to filter it by the accounts field by comparing the accounts, the selected account, to the customer field in the list. One more thing that I'd like to do, I'd like to enable users to add a customer if they want. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's call it add contact. And I'm clicking apply. And let's see what's the difference now. Okay, I see that the resolution is too high for you. Let me know if this looks clearer to you now. Okay, thank you. These are the accounts that I have, okay. And look here, above the drop-down, now I see this filter, which lets me filter by another column in that source list of the lookup field. So I can filter and see only Robin's accounts or any others. So this lets you filter your lookup by additional columns. Look at the account contact. So if I don't select any value, then I don't have any values in account contact. Only if I select some account, now I will see contacts that belong to that account. Okay, and also you see that I have here below the account contacts, add contact link. And this is very helpful when you start filling out the form and suddenly you see that you're missing a value here. So instead of leaving the form, going to the lookup list and adding the missing value, you can do it directly from here. Just click here and you'll get the new contact form right here. Now, of course, only users that have the permission to add items in that remote list will see the link. Okay, that's it. That's how simple it is to add cascading behavior and other enhancement to your lookup list. Let's move forward. So we have our cascading fields. Now I need to add some field validation rules, so I can make sure the form is submitted only after it's properly filled. Now, SharePoint comes with the basic validation rules. You can make a field mandatory, or if it's a numeric field, you can configure maximum and minimum values, and that's more or less it if you're not getting too technical with formulas. Now, same as all other settings pages, we added a setting page that allows you to create a more dynamic validation rules without any technical formulas, just creating rules. So in this example, I'm going to do the following. I have this third tab, if you remember, which is called upsell info. And it's visible only if I check the upsell field, and then you see upsell details and the upsell amount fields. Now, if it is an upsell, I want to make sure the user, the salesman, properly updates these two fields. So I want these fields to be mandatory. However, I cannot make them mandatory in SharePoint because many times it's not an upsell. So these fields are irrelevant. So I want to make these fields conditionally mandatory. Only if upsell field is checked, only then these two fields need to be mandatory. So I'm going to configure this condition for these two fields and show you some other stuff. So let's go back to the KWIZCom Forms settings page. So I'm going back here. And this time, to create field validation rules, you need to go to the field constraints setting page. Okay, let's click here. And you'll see it's quite boring. It's the same trick. Select a field, configure a rule. That's it. So let's select the upsell amount field. And let's make it bigger. Sorry. I hope this is okay. Okay, so let's create a new rule. And there are many operators. Of course, they depend on the type of your field. This is a currency field, so you see all these operators. If it was a text field, you would see some other operators, of course. So first of all, I want to make sure this field is not empty. And here I have a suggested error message. Of course, you can change it. And let's click a condition. The condition as for when do I want to make sure this field is not empty. So I want to validate this rule only if upsell checkbox is checked. Okay, here's the rule. Validate upsell amount is not empty when upsell current value is yes. And I want to do exactly the same for upsell details. So let's create a new rule for it. And you see this field has different operators a bit because this is a text field. So I want this field to be not empty under the same condition. That's it. By the way, I could add another rule here for this text field. I can also validate patterns, for example. I can select match pattern, and we have a library of common patterns like date and phone numbers, postal codes, and so on. All of these are based on regular expressions. So if you click go to patterns list, you can update these rules, these patterns, and you can create your own custom patterns. Like, for example, if you have your own company's employee code pattern or something similar, social security numbers and so on, you can add more patterns that you can use later. Okay, so let's see how this works. So I'm going back to my form and I'm going to refresh it. And I'm just going to fill out the form very quickly. And let's go to lead details and add banner. I'm just showing you the various controls, how they look like. Product license. Okay, and I'm going to check the checkbox, the upsell checkbox here. By the way, you see that every time I update a field, you have this undo next to the field. This is part of the Microsoft Fluent design. I find it very nice because it helped me to revert everything that I do very quickly. Okay, and now I have these two fields, which are supposed to be mandatory. I'm not going to, although it's an upsell because I checked the checkbox. I'm not going to put any values here and just click save. So you see several indicators. First of all, you see above the property, the validation error panel here above that says that I have some problems. And the tabs that have validation errors will be marked with an X. Currently, only this tab has issues. And of course, you see the validation error under each of the relevant fields. Okay, so that's that. Let's move forward to another thing that I need to do with my sales lead form. Yeah, next thing I want to do. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention, I hope I'll have time also to show you multi-row forms. People who worked with InfoPath, like repeating sections or repeating tables. What I wanted to mention is all the things that I showed you so far, like show or hide fields, dynamic default values for fields I didn't show you yet, validation rules. All of these, of course, work inside repeating sections like this. So if I have the time, I'll show it to you also. What I'm going to do now is move to process automation. We don't call it workflows, we call it custom actions. We try to move away from technical terms, so workflow seems a bit technical. What we have for process automation are two things here that you will see in the Forms app settings pages. The first one is activities. And by the way, this is part of the Enterprise Edition, as you can see. An activity is a small and atomic action, like add item, update item, call a web service, send an email, and so on. The activity has no context. It's just a simple action. It doesn't know the context of why it's called. It's called with parameters. And as a workflow, we have a custom action. A custom action is actually same as a workflow. It is triggered by either a user click on a custom ribbon button that you can add, or if it's a modern list, it's not a ribbon button, it's just a button. Or it can be automatically triggered by an item event, such as item added, item updated, or item deleted. Once the custom action is triggered, it can display an initiation form, a configurable initiation form, which allows user to provide input for the custom action. And then it calls a series of activities, the activities that I mentioned just now, these simple actions one by one with parameters. And finally redirect the user to another form, another page. And so it's very similar to the concept of workflow, but as you will see, we follow the same user experience of KWIZCom forms. We try to make it as simple as we can. So let's take this example. So I have a sales lead form. When the status changes to customer approved and I click save, which means we have here an approved lead, I want two things to happen. First of all, I want to add a new order to the order list, of course, with the values taken from this approved lead. And secondly, I want to send an email, again, with some values taken from this lead, like this order was approved, this is the product, this is the quantity, and so on. So let's do it. I'm going, first of all, to create two activities. Activities are the basic thing that you need to create. I'm clicking here on activities. And let's create a new one. So the first one, I'm going to select the add item. Okay, so I choose add item. By the way, we have, these are the types of activities. So it's add item, copy or move item, delete, send email, get column value, which is used to pass the value to another activity, set item permissions. You can update an item, call a web service, or call a workflow. Okay, I'll stay with add item, and let's call this one add order, because I want to add a new order to the orders list. And description, I'll just write a clear descriptions for users who might want to use this, but now there's no other users, so I'll just click add order. And now I go to the properties. So you can add an item not only to list in the current site. Again, you can select other sites to add to run this action. But I'll stay with this site, and I have here an orders list. So let's select it. And once you select the list, now you need to say, okay, how do you want to update the field? So approved, I'll keep with yes, but I have here customer. So as I said, an activity should be kept simple and stupid, meaning no context. So I could put here a token with the current account. Yeah, this is a column name. I could use it, but I don't want to do it. I prefer to use a parameter. So let's call it, I don't know, ACCT. It's up to me. And this is the convention for a parameter. And let's do the same with the other fields that I want to update. So product, I won't select a product, but I will type a parameter name prod. And finally, I want also to update the quantity. So I'm going to use a parameter called quant. That's it. So this activity will get its parameter from the custom action who calls it in runtime. You'll see shortly. Clicking apply. And now I'm going to, clicking save. And now I'm going to add another activity, which is the send email activity. Okay, so I'm going to select the email activity and let's call it send email. By the way, activities are created once. You can then reuse them. You don't have to create them every time. So best thing is to keep them generic. So here everything will be a parameter. So this way I can use this activity in many other custom actions, right? So recipient, this will be the parameter, and subject sub, and in the body, you know what, in the body I can have a formatted body. So I'll use a format that I prepared before, which looks like this. It's not too complicated. Just a second. Yeah, we have 7 minutes. So this is the format. Hello, order number, and I will get the order number parameter from the custom action that calls it. And I prepare like parameters for everything. Of course, now because I can make it a bit nicer, I didn't focus on making this design, but it's up to you to make it look better. Okay, so I'm clicking apply or save. So I have my two activities. Now I'm going to create the custom action, the workflow that runs these two activities. Okay, so I'm going back to form settings and I'm going now to custom actions. Okay, let's create a new custom action and let's call it, as I told you, it can be an automatic action, which is triggered by these events, or it can be a ribbon button action. And then you say, okay, what's the caption of the ribbon button, and what's the image you want to have it, and if you want to have a confirmation message when someone clicks it, and so on. I'm going to use an automatic action, and I call it lead approved. And this action is called when a sales lead is approved. Okay. And I want this to be updated when an item is updated. I want it to be called when an item is updated. And now, okay, which activities do you want to run when this custom action is triggered? So you click here, add activity, and you see the available activities. Remember, these are the two activities that I just added. So I'm clicking add order, and I see the details on this activity. It's an add item type activity, and it updates the orders list in the KWIZCom Forms site. And now it says it sets approve to yes and customer equal to account. And you see these parameters that I configured they look now like links. And when I click the link, I get the variable map editor, which allows me to bind values to these parameters. Okay. So in this example, this is the account, the customer. So I want the account field to be updated to it. So I'm just adding the token and click OK. And for product, for the prod parameter, I want the products field to be updated to it. And finally, in the quant parameter, I want the quantity field to be updated. That's it. And I also want to call the send email. Same thing. And to recipient, I want to call the, I think, assign to. I'll have the user with an email, okay? And the subject should be, I don't know, let's just type something. A new order is approved. And now in the message itself, I had many tokens. So order number, I'll take it from here. I don't know, let's take the ID in this case. I didn't prepare something special. And again, product, I'll use my product and so on. So this way you see I can use dynamic tokens, dynamic values from my item. Finally, it's the price. Okay, so clicking save, and I'm going back to my list. Let's edit the list. I'm going back to the list view to reload the list because it needs to load the rules. Okay, so let's edit this one. It's the only one I have. Clicking edit. And let's just select an account. Okay, this account is okay. Lead details, internet search, assigned to me. Okay, this is connected, by the way, to my Gmail address, so it's good. I have a product, I have a quantity. The status should be, oh, there's one thing I forgot. I didn't configure a condition for when this custom action should run. The last one, I configured the action settings. It's an automatic when item updated, but I don't want it to run every time someone saves an item. I want it to be updated only when the status is approved. Otherwise, it will run every time someone saves it. So, sorry about that. Okay, going back here. Let's reload it. Okay, I think everything is good here. I'll just change the lead status to customer approved, and I'm gonna click save. Now, before I go to my Gmail to see that I got the email, first of all, I can go here. Let's open the item for a second. And I can see the log of this custom action, like see if there were errors, like we weren't able to send the mail, maybe we didn't have a mail server or whatever. By the way, here I can print the form, but I can go here to custom actions history and see what happened here. Okay, so I see that everything was completed okay. All these were, let's see, from today. Okay, this is from today. Lead approved. So I see add order and send email, both of them completed. Okay, so we're good. And let's see, let's open my Gmail for a second. Yeah, I got this KWIZCom Forms email. Let's make it bigger because it's super tiny. Okay, so order number 32 was approved. This is the product. Okay, so it's last thing that I want to mention before I start answering questions. I wanted also to mention, yeah, show you about repeating rows, repeating sections. So we call our solution repeating rows. For example, I have here an expense form. Okay. Also, it's fully responsive and so on. It's very similar to the concept you see in InfoPass. What I mean is you have your total fields that you can configure. It's fully, it obeys all the rules of KWIZCom Forms. For example, if I select here an expense form, expense type of food, and let's say I have a very nice meal with a customer, and I try to save this. Let's just select a date here, and I try to save this. You will see a validation rule that I configured with KWIZCom Forms. Or, for example, if I try to report a date, report an expense in a future date, like May 1st, look what happened here. The amount field disappeared on me because I created a rule that says you cannot report an expense on a future date. So all the rules, the validation rules, and the hide and show and disable field rules, they also work, of course, in repeating rows. Also, you can add attachments to each separate row. And let's take this example, like the expense report. It's very common to ask an employee when he reports an expense to add the scanned receipt, for example. You can also connect the repeating rows not just to a list, but you can also connect it to a document library. And this way you can have a list connected to many documents connected to the list. And not like attachments, these documents might have different metadata than the list. So this is another scenario that we support of connected documents. I think that's about what I planned for now.